Greetings and welcome, everyone. This is Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. I'm Garrett Weinzierl, here as always with Kyle Fergusson, and we are joined once again, it's been a little while, by NotParadox. Welcome back, dude.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me back. It's always so much fun to be on here, so I appreciate it.
Well, it as BlizzCon tradition, we have you on after to talk about what happened. And that honestly feels like 1,000 years ago. I am so past and over last weekend. I feel like we already did this.
Yeah. I mean, BlizzCon kind of shot by. It just felt like a lot shorter than it normally is. And I mean, of course, with COVID, that's naturally how it's going to be. But it seems like a lot of these games did their announcements before BlizzCon even came out, since everyone pretty much knew everything that was going to happen at BlizzCon. Like, people were literally like, and here's where they're going to talk about the Diablo 2 remodel or whatever. And it's like, and here's where they're going to talk about Burning Crusade. And it's like, everyone already knew everything. It was a unique BlizzCon that was still a lot of fun, especially since it was free for everyone. So I'd imagine everyone just, at the very least, had it on one monitor or something.
Yeah, at the end, I was just like, is this how normal people that don't go to BlizzCon, is this how you consume it? Like, you're actually well-educated and you actually see and hear all of the news? Because when I'm there, it's just like, I have no clue. You'll walk by someone in a hallway and they'll shout, hey, did you see the thing at Diablo? And you'd be like, wait, what? You're blowing my mind right now because you were too busy over at another stage and you couldn't figure it out unless you were sitting on your phone while also watching a panel. This is the most informed I feel at the end of any BlizzCon. But also, as you mentioned, it was shorter, which makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But as as was promised, as was warned, there was jack all for Heroes of the Storm at this BlizzCon, and it came and went, and there we have it.
Yeah, we had our warning signs too. Like, I knew Hogger was the BlizzCon hero because they always release like a crazy hero at BlizzCon that doesn't follow most of the rules. And so that's kind of what Hogger was in my eyes. So I was like, that's their BlizzCon hero, which means we're not going to get a hero for BlizzCon. And then we also saw it. There were announcements that basically said there's not going to be any announcements for Heroes of the Storm. We did our announcements with Hogger, and we also are still working on a lot of stuff that we can't reveal yet. And that was basically the announcement that we had. And so I think while it was disappointing, I think most Heroes of the Storm players knew going in that we weren't going to see a lot for Heroes of the Storm. But it still was pretty fun seeing the 30-year animation for I'm blanking on his name right now.
Carbot?
Carbot. There we go.
Are we talking about the same animation? Is this the one where Overwatch literally murdered Heroes of the Storm?
Yeah.
In the animation?
Well, I mean, they murdered like every other game as well, including themselves when they showed up. But I still thought it was funny. Just the whole aspect of it. It was pretty great. But yeah, I mean, overall, I know you guys don't talk about Overwatch a lot, but man, I was pretty hyped about Overwatch 2, even though it's like a good year out.
I mean, they showed the things I want to see, like the Left 4 Deadiness. We had our smokers and our boomers and our units running around that are going to be exclusive. I kind of like the grossness. I'm not going to lie. I really like Vermintide. I want to feel like I don't want your monster to touch me because that increases my enjoyment of fighting said monsters. So when you've got all these sterile robots that look like I wouldn't even have an infected cut if you slapped me, I don't know if I'm interested.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they're working on some things that are... I don't know if we're going to get that Vermintide feel, but Vermintide feel is just like you're just overwhelmed, and you're going to get hit by these gross things. But I definitely like the weather effects they're adding to just add a feeling to the game outside of just... hey, this is just a grindy Payday 2 Borderlands 3 hitting each of these zones looter shooter. And so it's neat. Some of it seemed a little unnecessary, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's Blizzard. They add their polish. So I'm very hyped for that. And I don't know, this is like a Heroes of the Storm podcast, but definitely can show some appreciation to what they're doing with Overwatch 2.
And nothing wrong with playing in other video games. In fact, we constantly talk about a healthy video game diet doesn't consist of just our junk food, just toxicity in chat and competition and going for wins. You got to lose a little bit. You got to enjoy something else on the side. But I do want to ask you, since we haven't had you around since then, how did Hogger land for you?
Hogger's a ton of fun. I just think he's fun. I don't know. He seems like he's going to be very hard to balance. Like, I'm just watching sometimes, and it's like when the bounces go right, it feels like there's no way to counter him. When like you've got the angles down and you're playing against a Hogger that knows all the angles in and out, it feels like you just can't counter him, because he will bounce right into your backline, do like half your health, bounce out, and then you get like 2 shots on him, and then he'll drop down like a trait, heal himself for the health that he lost, and just go right back in again. And it's like, well, what do we do? But overall, I mean, he's very fun to play, and I think if they can balance just a couple things about him, which already he's relatively balanced as it is, it's just that I think we definitely are going to need to see more ways to counterplay with that spin. Also, the fact that No Control didn't get a nerf really surprises me, since you can 100 to 0 someone with a single button press. But I mean, level 20 talents are supposed to be strong. So, yeah, I mean, overall,
requirement about the rage, like once you figure out you have to actually have rage to make No Control good, there's a little bit of a mini game there, and I've been changing up my build as we've done that. It looks like Garrett's got some breaking news for us.
Hey, you keep going. I'm working in the background here. It's fine. I was planning on coming in once this reached the natural conclusion of its trajectory. But yeah. Breaking news a minute ago in a Reddit thread currently over on r/Heroes of the Storm titled "For the Love of All That Is Holy, Summon Patch Notes." One Blizz D. Warner replied, quote, "We are currently looking to release a balance patch early next week. Smiley emoticon."
Cool. Yeah.
All right.
I'm always up for balance.
The whole plan for this episode, which was basically just getting NotParadox's opinion on the current meta, which is still going to be the case, and throw it out the window. Just throw it out the window. This episode is now, what would you like to see in the next balance patch?
That's a tough one.
Well, we know the Kerrigan bug on Volskaya is going to get fixed. Not like she's been crazy win rate or anything, and I don't think her Volskaya presence has been unnaturally high because of that.
Okay. So, can we include reworks into what we hope is in a balance patch, or is that too bold?
Well,
okay.
Do you think they would that D. Warner would change his wording?
Oh yeah, he would probably say like, we've got. They hint those these days now. They usually hint those and kind of let us know a little bit. So there's no way this actually has a rework in it. Yeah. But I want a Probius rework that he's actually a builder. Sure. I know that's pushing it, because they try to get away from that weird stuff. They've reworked most of like the specialist style heroes, and they've moved him more into like the assassin space or the bruiser space. So I know I'm crazy to ask for that, but I do want to see a Probius that's more builder than mage, rather than what he is right now, which is more like a slow mage. So I want that. But as far as like balance goes, I mean, I would just like to see them take almost everything that's on like the lower end of the play rate and just find ways to pump up like underutilized talents. Like, right, that's something that I always want to see.
I'm currently sorting hot slugs by games played, and yeah, Probius's lowest games played over the last 2 patches, followed closely by Cho and Gall.
Okay.
Sergeant Hammer takes technically the 4th place, but Cho and Gall are taking 2nd and 3rd, followed by Zarya and the Lost Vikings. I would go out of my way and say Lost Vikings, I think, is working exactly as intended, and I don't want them to mess with the Lost Vikings.
Exactly.
Yeah. Don't make Lost Vikings more accessible. Do not make the Lost Vikings easier to play, because I get so excited when I see a Lost Viking savant do what they do best. But yeah, so if we're just looking at like unpopular heroes. It looks like it's Probius, it's Sergeant Hammer, and it's Zarya.
You know who I also want to rework for that is a relatively popular hero in QM, but not necessarily in like ranked or anything, is Nova. I'm always...
They've messed with her so much.
They have, but she's in such an odd spot. Like Nova and Probius would be like my two prime reworks because they're both underpopular, and the Probius one tricks for sure can show up. They definitely show up to these games, and they have 55-56% win rates, solid on their hero. But he just feels awkward, and he feels outclassed in the competitive nature because what he can do with a delay, there are mages that can do without a delay. And so I just feel like outside of like the building stuff, but that's what I want them to put more into, less on his WQ and more onto his like building. And then Nova is very popular for new players, but her playstyle does not fit for new players, which ends up making her kind of a trap hero. So I would love to make her more accessible to new players somehow, where having a Nova on your team, you don't immediately feel bad because you're like, oh, we're not going to get anything done. I would love to have her be more oriented for new players since she's such a popular one for new players.
Man, I would not go down that road, but I see what you mean.
Like a lower skill cap is really what I'm asking for.
Yeah, she's such a weird one because she is balanced around quick match. She is balanced around the ability to destroy one target. I mean, look at something like triple tap with 100-second cooldown. That is insane for something with counter playability of both buildings and teammates. And then she has these long windows where she just doesn't do a lot, particularly if you're doing something like maybe anti-armor shells.
Yeah.
Where your attack speed's slower, so your participation's down. The Nova I would like to see is something we saw kind of hinted at with the Tassadar rework, where maybe there's something where like you can lower other people's armor and you can choose to build based on breaking physical armor or spell armor, and then you enable somebody else to get that kill, but you're there doing ghost recon kind of stuff.
Yeah,
that in no way agrees with what you're saying, which I am also in agreement with. It's a popular hero for quick match players and new players who see this potential to 1v1 somebody in the middle of a bush somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those heroes that like, one of the things I like to do with some friends is I like to go through the Heroes of the Storm Twitch and just go down to like the bottom few people. And oftentimes they're new players that have entered the game. They're just streaming their experience. They don't pull in a lot of people from Heroes of the Storm because nobody really knows them. And without a doubt, new players that bring all their friends in, there will be one Nova player. Without a doubt, there will be someone playing Nova at some point. It's such a cool concept for a hero that new players love. But current competitive players like almost never play her. And so I wonder if there's a way that they could bring like that sniper feeling and that stealth feeling to the game in a way that's a lot more productive without it being without counterplay, I guess is the best way. Because it's like I play games like, I know this is a terrible example, but I play games like XCOM. And the snipers in XCOM, I know this has nothing to do with MOBAs at all.
You are talking to the right two dudes. Kyle and I have a shared love of XCOM.
But like the snipers in XCOM, they hit differently. They have such a unique feel where they're assisting the team. They've got this Overwatch, which is not like the game Overwatch, but Overwatch in XCOM is when someone appears in Division, you immediately fire one shot at them. And I'm like, that would be such a cool concept to have where if your teammate sets up for something, you get benefited. So kind of like the opposite of Sins Exposed on Joanna, where you can throw that out and then anyone can break them as well as yourself, but anyone can break that Sins Exposed proc. It would be cool if you almost did the opposite, where if your team landed something, unsure what it is yet, maybe you mark someone, and if they hit a marked target, then you do more damage or something. I don't know, but something like that would be cool. But I don't know, like that way there's counterplay to it. But
bringing up XCOM, there is what if we made Nova's snipe able to be cast range increased should she be provided sight by somebody else.
Yeah. So like if you
like,
get inside of someone.
Why is it only Ana that gets to like fire across the whole map?
Yeah, I mean, Ana's a sniper, but she's a sniper healer, and it feels like her kit feels more like a sniper. You can crouch down and increase the range of your sniping abilities, and that's not even something she can do in Overwatch. And like, and so they're adjusting her kit to be different from what she normally is. The other thing that I was thinking, and this could be a huge stretch, if you've played the StarCraft co-op version of Nova, she has 2 weapons and she can switch between them. And that could bring more playability into Nova. She has a weapon that would be she has a shotgun that's more for wave clear. And she has a sniper that's naturally more for single target. Could be something interesting to add into the mix as well. I don't know. I just think that Nova is... Every new player wants to play Nova, and then they tend to lose their games because Nova definitely struggles in what the overall of what HOTS needs, which is macro. And so they tend to struggle, lose a lot more, and it may discourage new players to continue playing because such a cool character, like the new player characters are not that cool, right? You have like Lily, Raynor, and Jaina, which all don't feel that fun for a new player entering the game. They want to play Butcher. They want to play Nova. They want to play like Artanis. Those are like the 3 that I see new players always go to. And it's like, I feel like they're just not new player accessible heroes. So those are the, like some that I just have been kind of looking at. Like if there are reworks, like Nova and Probius are like my first 2 that I think about.
You know what? I think it would be really cool if Nova could have a trait where she's not revealed via casting spells and hitting them.
Zeratul used to have something like that. There's still a video floating around there from like 2015 where Trixler took out the enemy core while he stayed stealth.
There is... So you're playing Chromie and you hit a really long range skill shot and it says, Chromie's here. You know, you don't get vision of her area, but you know she exists in that bush where she's hanging out. Mm-hmm. What if we took a page from like Halo 2, made a nice little smoke trail? That would
okay.
You would know in general where Nova was.
I actually like that. Yeah.
Oh, you're speaking my language now. Okay,
and then maybe we add on top of that the ability, kind of like an Overwatch, XCOM kind of thing, where if you don't move out of said bush or you don't move too much, you're reloading faster and you increase that snipe attack speed or cast speed. Cooldown.
Okay. So but you would still only have the same reveal ability, which is you'd have to reveal her with a placed AoE or something, right?
Well,
or is there another way to... You could maybe right click her, but she doesn't show up on the map.
So I think it's more that she just doesn't, when she hits a spell, doesn't get revealed. So in that case, there would be a little bit of like, I don't know, like Infernal Shrines viability for her because she couldn't make the Punisher jump while jumping the Punisher. Because she, as a trait, would not reveal herself when hitting attacks.
Okay.
But she would still break stealth. She would still be out of there. You would go find her normally. I mean, I'm also taking some influence from Deathwing players who basically hide over walls in order to reduce the sight on their cooldowns and their windups.
Yeah, definitely. That's a huge thing for Deathwing because all of his abilities are on a delay. So it's like you want to try to just be over a wall if possible. Even someone as simple as Li Ming, firing your abilities over a wall, there's less time to react to him. Honestly, like, I don't know what direction I would want to go. I would want her to be more accessible to new players since she's cool. A stealth sniper is cool. It's cool in every game that a stealth sniper exists. And I feel like every game that I play, I'm like, I want to play a stealth sniper. And then I play a stealth sniper and realize, and at least remember, that I'm awful at shooters. And that's usually my progression of every game. Widowmaker, I'm like, stealth sniper, this is going to be great. Again, remember that I'm awful at shooters, so I stopped playing Widowmaker. But yeah, basically every game ends up like that. And I think with a MOBA, it's like, that's what people go into. But then she doesn't really feel like a stealth sniper. She feels like a stealth mage. that has single target damage and clones. And that's what she feels like to me.
In a vacuum, she would fulfill a single player fantasy, but in a balanced game, she's rightfully toned down and therefore feels useless a lot of the time.
And
there's some interesting thoughts we've come across here. Like, so I'm really interested in your smoke trail idea, Kyle, but at the same time, are we considering getting rid of decoys at that point? Because what's the point of a decoy if you're not revealing yourself when you're casting spells?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, cool.
I'm honestly fine if you want Nova to be less annoying. We can't just give her more range, so you would have to remove one of her more annoying features. The decoys are cool, but I feel like we have Samuro, who basically has that same decoy playstyle but better. And so if you wanted to play a hero for decoys, I feel like you would simply just play Samuro. Nova's decoys is just outclassed, and her mage aspects are just outclassed, and her stealth aspects are outclassed. Like, so Valir is a better stealth hero, Jane is a better mage, Orphe is a better mage. Most of the mages are better mages. Most auto attackers are better auto attackers, and the clone decoy system, Samuro is a better decoy person. So it's like, I just honestly feel like we could drop down her gimmicks, make her feel more like a sniper, and you got yourself a cool hero that people would have fun going to. So I like the smoke trail, and I like the more sitting still like a sniper would. And I don't know, but I've been seeing that a lot lately with new players coming to the game, which is great to see new players coming to the game. But it's sad when they start playing the game and they get frustrated because half their team is Butcher and Nova, and they are feast or famine. Nova, if you miss even a single Q in her current state, she loses like half her damage. And Butcher, if he dies, you lose your meat. And it's like they're playing all these feast or famine heroes that are not consistent, and they stop enjoying the game because they're just losing so much. And there's also like Smurfs and whatnot, but it's like, that's not fun. And I watch them play, and they're like, all right, we're going to go back to playing this other game after like 3 losses. They're like, we're going to go back to playing this other game. And it's like, it would be fun for them to have some more consistency with these heroes that new players often like gravitate to.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're wrong. I think you threw both Kyle and I for a loop, because I don't think either of us think about Nova all that much. But that's probably part of the problem. Like,
people that play the game a lot, it feels like Nova doesn't even exist. It almost feels like Probius doesn't exist either, unless you're playing against, like, in the high levels of Masters, you see a lot of like one tricks.
I definitely see more Nova than I do Probius.
Yeah, so it's like you just feel like they just don't exist.
Yeah.
Well, it's particularly weird because we get into a scenario where it's not intuitive. Like a good Nova, and I've played with a one-trick Nova in Storm League, it's constantly lane clearing via their ult, Orbital Strike, which is so anti-fantasy.
Yeah.
But global,
like you're nuking minions.
Yeah.
And same thing with Bribe. Like the way that she gets camps is Bribe, which is okay, but it doesn't really feel like something that a stealth sniper would do. It just seems like it was kind of an afterthought of, oh, by the way, we noticed that Nova has no way to clear camps, so you can talent into the ability to pay them off. And it's like, again, I think there's more thematic ways of handling that. But I don't know. I mean, the thing about Nova in StarCraft's co-op, again, to kind of, the co-op usually expands what the theme of that character is. So I like to use that as an example. The theme about Nova's co-op character is that she has highly trained units. She can have fewer of them, quite a bit fewer of them, because not only are they more expensive, but she also can only have half as many as they normally are. So it ends up to where she only has about 1/3 to 1/4 of the units that a normal Terran would have. So a normal Terran could grab something like, let's say, I don't even know. I think they can have like 100 Marines or something, because her Marines are extra trained. She can only have like maybe 20. And that's her gimmick. She's just this highly trained person. All of the people that follow her are super trained, and she has 2 different weapons, but she's still like heavily based on stealth, and people have to reveal her. We have less reveal ability in HOTS, so naturally that's not going to be a thing. But I feel like we don't get that highly trained feeling out of Nova. Like, it would almost be more of a fun gimmick to have her bribe replace the units with her highly trained units. So no matter what camp you bribe, you're not getting that camp anymore. You're getting her versions of units. So she'll have like her own siege or her own bruisers that are different. That would make it more of a thematic bribe to me.
Like, she comes in, kills, like, dead.
Yes. Yeah, she like snipes 2 of them, and then her units drop in. So for siege, she would get like I think they're called Marauders, which they fire off rockets. They look like Blaze, but they fire off rockets.
Yep.
And then for her siege camps, her bruiser camps would be like Blazes. Like, they do like the splash fire damage instead.
When AC Jackson was on here talking about how he always wanted to do a crazy ultimate for Zagara. That's what the vibes you're giving me right now.
Yeah. So that's basically what I feel like. If she's going to have a bribe, that would be more thematic. And you can use units that already exist in the game, worst case. For the siege, you could just use those catapult tanks that she summons, which would be more valuable than siege. It could be anyways. If they're not more valuable than siege, if they're weaker units, make her bribe a lower cooldown or summon extras of them. So you bribe 2 siege camps and it summons 4 of those tanks or something. I don't know. I'm not a balanced person. I mean, it would definitely be something that would need to be looked at. But I think that would be something that could be interesting.
We've had some really some crazy upheaval in some of the reworks. So yeah, I mean, the rework could be anything, but I think like at the end of the day, your point is like, try something pretty outlandish with reworking.
I'm at it right now. I mean, like that's what I want to see. Even with just their balance. Like, if you're just going to change a number, let's see how much you can change that number. You know, like that's where I'm at right now, where you can always go back and fix it in a couple days if it's just a number change. Like, they've done hot fixes like that before. I don't know if you guys remember the Maiev release, but Maiev had, normally a hero comes out, 3 weeks later that hero gets balanced. Maiev got balanced 4 times within that 3 weeks. And so that's the thing that I think is a possibility that I would love to see them do more, where you take a talent that like nobody picks and just go, let's see what we could do with it. You know, like that's what I want to see right now in balance patches. Like, things that are strong, light tweaks down. Things that are weak, light tweaks up. Things that nobody plays, go nuts. Go nuts. That's what I want to see. But again, I don't work balance, so that's probably a good thing. Probably a really good thing that I don't work balance.
Yeah, as long as it's number tweaks, because we are definitely going longer than 3 weeks between balance patches at this point. So
yeah,
but yeah, Kyle, do you have a hopeful at the top of your list?
I've got some long-standing projects, some ideas. I would love to see Mal'Ganis get the equivalent of the old Diablo speed demon talent, where if you get interrupted or CC, you can still maneuver in some regard.
I think he needs that. Yeah, something like that. Level 13, where he has other movement speed things. Remove the one that you're like sleep slows or whatever, and then just give him that. I think that would be cool.
Just something to help you recover should you want to one-trick Mal'Ganis or enjoy him. And of course, that's going to be to your own detriment. But there are very, very few early pick tanks in this game, and I'd love to see him have some sort of reaction, because he's countered by tanks, which is a really weird place for a tank to be.
I think that would be a great change. Honestly, I would literally take that 13 talent that your E slows them, add it to the level 20 talent that your E shades them, for lack of a better term, reduces their vision radius. And I would give that as a potential talent. So if you're not against a lot of CC, you can just get the 15% bonus movement speed by heals or whatever. And if you are against a lot of CC, that could be a way where it's like you move 30% faster after CC, and CCs are reduced on you by 50% for the next 3 seconds. And that would be pretty cool. It wouldn't be like a huge buff to his overall what he does, but it would allow him to have a little bit of talents that he can change around, not just at 13, but that would also really buff that level 20 talent that I already think is a really cool talent. It's just not quite up to his ult upgrades yet. So I think that would be cool.
In the same vein, I'd love to see something like Alex Straza. This might be too far, but in coordinated play, I would love for Alex Straza to have a talent where she could move her abundance.
Oh,
Which wouldn't be insane if you think about it in coordinated play. Like you set up abundance, your circle. This is where everyone's healing, and Ana goes, no, you're not. And you just go, oop, it's over here now. And if she hit heroes, that's what the grenade did. That's on those heroes.
What would be cool? So at level 13 talents are utility usually. So this is why 13 is going to keep coming back up. At level 13, she has 2 activatables. One is a 60-second cooldown that will pacify a target. And one is a 60-second cooldown that does a small heal and a little bit of damage around it. You know what would be cool is if, because it's such a long cooldown, if you activate the heal one, it moves your W to be under the target that you healed at the current cast time. So you can, on a long cooldown, you can reposition your heal right before it heals. Would that be busted? That would probably be busted. Maybe it resets the time. So you heal someone and then it resets it to another 3 seconds. So you can reposition it. Because at the current one, you could probably just throw one behind you and then just instantly heal someone for like a huge portion of their health. So yeah, it would have to reset the heal, but that would be kind of cool.
What if it was what if it was sort of like the UI for like active reload on Tracer, where you start your abundance and you have maybe half of the amount of time that it takes for it to pop its heal to decide, no, never mind, I want it over here now. But if you go past that halfway mark, it's locked in at that point.
So you can place it, and then within the first half of the ability, you can change its position.
Something like that, or whatever feels appropriate. Yeah. Maybe in the first quarter, you can't move it. Then there's this sweet spot in the middle where you can move it. And then the final quarter, it's locked in again. Like whatever the place, but you have this idea of like this window within the wind up that you can then go, you know what?
I mean, as long as there's a talent for it, I think that's fine. I think having it just as a base thing might remove a lot of the counterplay to Alex, but I think that's fine as long as it's a talent that you actually have to give up something to get that ability.
Yeah,
well, but I think that's fine.
That 10 window, like
what about like level 16 though? Like where it's already a competitive tier, everyone takes Dragon. There is a W talent on that tier that people just don't take. What if that's the one that allows you to just reposition it? And it's a level 16 talent, so it's like that seems like a pretty strong thing. So we just add that on to what the 16 talent currently is, which I think currently it's you get a shield based on 60% of the amount healed. So now it's also allows you to reposition it once after casted.
And that's a lot of levels to go by that you've been feasted and entombed and everything.
Yeah, so to you. KTs get so used to throwing their Q on your W, and then one time you just get them to waste it, and that's a key moment, right? Like you throw down the W, and then he throws a Q, and Ana throws a grenade, and you're pinging to your team where it's really gonna be. You're pinging over in a different area. So your team starts moving forward. You drop it down and they throw everything at it. And then you reposition it, heal your team. They get shields and stuff. And your team just jumps on them.
And you got like Tank Uther standing in the false wrong spot there. So he shields himself. And it would just be very cool counterplay. And I know a lot of Alex Strazas just really, really want to play the hero. And again, there is a lot of limitations in what we can early pick these days, which is why we see so much Hogger, addition to everything else. Hogger, Diva, bruisers in general are getting early pick because they might take up the tank role if everything looks good there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
There's also there's also the idea of making an activatable that could change what your W does. Like, I know this is a little wild, but like Alex Straza in WoW is not just a healer. It would be interesting to see if you could have like some of the other dragons as inspiration, like a talent tier where you could activate one of these buttons to change what your W does, kind of like Emerald and Sapphire and Ruby. It would be kind of neat to have like one that you throw out a W and it heals, and you can activate it, and it's like it also gives a shield, or you can activate it and it might do damage to the enemies as well. I mean, maybe that's too much. It's leaking too much into Deckard. Let's scratch that. I didn't.
I agree that it'd be stepping on other toes, but it'd be really cool to have evil Alex Straws of like, abundance. It's more like scarcity. Here's a circle for the enemy.
Yeah. It's some interesting thoughts there.
What about you, Garrett?
Well, I mean, if we're talking like hopeful reworks, like Zagara has been on my list for a while, and so I know a lot of solo laners have gotten a lot of love with reworks in the last year, but boy, Zagara just looks old and moldy, and like I feel like I want the tamest thing, man. I just want her creep tumors to be way harder to kill. Like I am sick of working that hard and have everyone just cleaning up my lane.
Yeah. You know what I think about when I see Zag, and like, again, the StarCraft co, I'm going to bring in two games here. I'm going to bring in retail World of Warcraft, and I'm going to bring in the StarCraft co-op. So when you play Zag in StarCraft co-op, she's all known. Everyone knows her as, I don't know why I'm derping on words today. Everyone knows her as this swarm hero. All of her units, unlike, she's literally the opposite of Nova. Nova, all of her units cost more and she can have fewer of them. Zag, all of her units spawn double and cost half the cost. And so you will swarm out stuff very quickly. And it's usually her just summoning a bunch of stuff, and there's a bunch of minions going out. The new Warlocks, Demonology Warlocks in retail WoW.
Yep.
They used to be, you got one big demon, cool. Now, you will summon a small army just trying to do your optimal rotation as a Demonology Warlock. You can have out something like 6 imps, 2 of these little dogs, your normal pet, and a big summonable. I think it's for Demonology, what is it, like the big like winged thing? It's not the Felguard, but it's like something like that.
I think it's a Doom.
Is it a Doom Guard?
I think it's a Doom Guard. Chat room will correct us. I'm sure somebody
they'll correct us.
But yeah,
you summon like 15 things at once. Where is Zagara's Zerglings? Where she gets roaches, she gets uncontrollable banelings, and she gets 1 Hydralisk. And it's like, I want to see her swarm stuff. And I know it's a lot of summons, but like they've calmed down a lot of the summoner characters in the game. Let's at least leave 1 in there, kind of like Azmodan. I guess they did leave 1 in there, but you get what I mean. Like, it would be fun to have just Zerglings everywhere.
Yeah, but that's definitely the fantasy I kind of always wanted for a Zerg hero, and we never really got it. But like the thing is, like, I still enjoy playing Zagara as she is. I would love if they really went nuts with her and pushed her in the direction that you're describing. But at the same time, I'm just like, can we just tune her up a little bit?
Can we just fix her trait?
Can we just crank those dials up a bit, please? Like, that's
I mean, one of the things that you could do, I mean, if creep wasn't so strong, you could have like your core slowly grow with creep over time, similar to how, again, Stukov in the StarCraft one, you can't create creep. Your creep just slowly grows from your initial building, and it'll eventually cover the entire map. I'm not saying it needs to do that in HOTS, but that would be nice on defense for her to have unbreakable creep that slowly grows. So if you guys get behind, you just have creep that's unbreakable. But if you guys are ever ahead, it doesn't really do anything for you. So that could be something simple just to kind of make that a little bit easier. Because when you're behind and you lose your creep, it feels even worse.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting thought. Yeah, that's like my baby. That's like been one of my most favorite heroes for the longest amount of time, and just I'm not playing her right now. I'm just avoiding her like crazy. She's just not bringing it home. Anyways, I want to take us into realistic thoughts. What we think.
Sure.
Who we think actually is going to get dinged. Before we do, I want to take a minute and thank our patrons supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN. If you like this show and what we're doing here and you want to support us and help us keep the lights on and put some time into the show, check it out. Patreon.com/ITN. You'll get access to our Discord. You'll get to be able to sign up for our monthly game nights, among some other perks. So go check it out. And to our most recent patrons, thank you to Alexander James Raymond. Thank you to Nick Poloni. Thank you to Rupink for a particularly generous Patreon pledge. Thank you very much, Rupink. As well as Nick. I'm just going to go with Nick Y, because I'm going to butcher that. I apologize, Nick. And then Kenneth Reed. Thank you very much, everybody, for your support. Check it out, patreon.com/ITN. And so coming back to the hopeful patch for next week, would imagine Hogger is going to get dinged yet again. Currently sitting just below Uther, Rexar, Deathwing, Gazlo, Lost Vikings in the top spots, looking at Hot's logs. But we do know that Hogger's win rate also creeps higher and higher and higher as the skill goes higher and higher.
Yeah. I think honestly, just looking at this, everyone above 54 should not feel safe. And
listen,
really,
I still love me some Rexar, and I still don't feel safe.
Yeah, I would say anyone above 54% win rate should not feel safe right now. Any of these heroes could get light tweaks. I would say the only one is probably Vikings, just because the only people that go into playing the Vikings are people who are skilled enough and confident enough to do that, where a lot of these other heroes, you'll have people who might not have that same confidence play those heroes. So with the exception of Vikings, I would imagine that every hero above 54% win rate would probably get looked at here. The one that surprises me a little bit is for how dominant Sonya is in the competitive scene. She's not really that dominant in these matchups yet. Sonya in just Masters Clash, I pulled like 20 random games in Masters Clash, and of those 20 games, Sonya was banned or picked in every single game. And she was banned 9 times and picked 11 times out of those 20 games. So no other hero was anywhere near that. And all of them went the same build, the W build. So for me, looking at that, I would imagine she's going to get affected, even though you might not see her that much in Storm League. Her popularity is only like 20%. I do think that she will likely see some nerfs, most likely in the W build. I would imagine the big problem area is her level 16 talent. That's what takes the whole build from being, hey, this is kind of a funny build, to, oh, wow, she's doing a lot of damage and she's healing a lot of health and she's playing so safe. Like, I can't even get up to her because she's just walking up, tagging my tank, walking back and gaining all of her health back. And it's like, that's where I would imagine they're going to look at it, is that level 16 talent. But at the same time, you nerf that too much and it makes the whole build almost pointless. So it's going to be a tricky one to balance.
And if you remember, it's something that they were like very, in a minor way, tweaking over the course of multiple patches, and eventually it just kind of arrived. Like suddenly we were looking at, oh, hey, Giant Slammer build is a thing you can do. And I was about to come in with, well, Paradox, I think it's because not that many people are going that build, but it's actually damn close. It's not the most popular build looking at the games over on Hot Logs, but it is really, really close.
Yeah, it's kind of newer. I mean, Spin build is still like a popular build. It's fun to play. It's interesting. And so people still pick Spin a lot. And Storm League tends to be a little bit slower to adapting to the changes that are in the competitive environment. So the competitive is all playing W build right now. But Storm League catches up. They see someone running it they see a competitive player running it on stream, or you'll have what I used to always say that every rank would add 2 weeks onto a build. And so what'll happen is you'll have like the competitive player play it in Storm League, and then you'll have the master player who happened to play with that competitive player see it and go, wow, that was strong. And then they start playing it a little bit for a week, and you see the platinum player play with the master, or the diamond player play with the master player, and they go, wow, that was really strong. And then they start playing it. So it takes about 1 to 2 weeks per rank before you see things kind of move. And this one just started getting popular about a month ago. And so it's just one of those things that's growing in popularity, and it's probably going to get nerfed before the majority of the lower ranks even see what's happening. They're going to be looking at this going, wait, what? Why is that getting nerfed?
Right. It only just arrived in Diamond this week. And in fact, I didn't particularly care until I was Baby Diva in the back line, and Slams reached me and killed me.
Yeah.
And I had to go, what? What was that? What?
Yeah.
What could have...
So I'd imagine that's going to get nerfed, even though it's not at that 54% yet, but I'd imagine that is going to get nerfed.
Yeah, it seems suspect for sure. Even though, like, I just like want to shout out, like, how cool is it? Like, Sonya has strong build diversity. It seems like
yeah.
Even though the Whirlwind build isn't quite as high win rate wise as the Slam build, it is still a positive win rate.
Yeah, and there's also another build that actually kind of snuck out recently, and it's a bit of a hybrid build that I've seen in competitive a few times, and it's based on leap. It's leap and spear with a hint of auto attack, and it sounds weird, and it sounds like I'm describing a food right now, but I'm not. It's you leap on to stun the target, you take a step back while they're stunned, and then you're going to throw your spear onto the target to do extra damage. You'll get an auto attack W auto attack, and it's enough damage to kill a lot of backliners. And so they made this like weird hybrid build. These competitive players made this like weird hybrid build that's just enough to kill like one person. And that's enough. If you start a fight instantly killing one person, it's almost worth having a bad build because for the rest of the team fight, because it's like you're still a Sonya. You still can do damage, you can still heal, you can still be annoying, and they're immediately down someone. And so it's cool to see she has a lot of build diversity right now in competitive, and almost anything that you see in competitive, you can bring into Storm League without, too much of an issue.
If it's on a single hero, right, like this, it gets more difficult when you talk about like your like top tier Medivh plays and stuff like that. It's like you need someone else there with you to make this work. But yeah. It's very interesting. I would like more here. I'd like instead of in a perfect world, it'd be nice if we didn't like nerf this into the ground and instead kind of brought more heroes up to this kind of standard of being able to kind of build as the situation calls for, which is definitely I think has always been the hope and the ideal of the talent system in HOTS, but it's always been difficult to make that a reality.
Yeah, I think building for one ability feels really rewarding because it's like, even when like any ability that you could throw all your talents into, whenever you throw that ability, it always feels awesome. Like Cassia's like Q builds and stuff, like it feels awesome. But yeah, I think ultimately the talent system, it's nice to be able to have like, you can change it based off what the enemy comp is or what the map is. I think definitely having a little bit of both is worth it. I think right now, the way that they're starting to handle it is just like talent tier 4 and 13 is about like adapting, and talent tier like 1, 7, 16 is about what your build is supposed to do. And I think that's a good balance for it. I mean, not every hero is updated to that, but most reworks and new heroes seem to follow that to an extent.
Yeah. Cal, what about you, dude? Did you think anything other than the obvious that you think is they're gonna come for, either for nerfs or buffs?
No, I've got personal projects. Like I'd love to see some more talent diversity for Urel at 20, but ultimately, it can be anything under the sun. I just want to hear from the new guy. I want to see some dev comments. I want to see some, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm so and so. It could be Ice Froggy. Like you can hide behind a name. That's fine. But I just want to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah. I think with such a small but dedicated team, I think that was the one thing that I loved about the HOTS team is like, we know most of the like, there are a lot of people that are chatty on Reddit and on the forums, and it's like, it's fun to know that you have someone that's like there with ideas, beliefs. They're trying things out. They're going for things, and it's like, and then they're telling us about it, and we can almost ask them and be like, hey, like Daybringer, it's like, what about this? And he's like, I can't reveal anything yet, but here, like, I'm excited about this piece of it that I might be able to vaguely talk about. And it's like, it's fun because it's like you have someone that you can kind of chat with a little bit. And so I would love to hear, more about these new members and see.
it could be very, very anonymous. I just want to get to know you, whoever you are, because we care so much about what you're going to be doing. But if I may bring up something that seemed really bizarre to me in the Blizzard responses on Reddit this week. They had a meme, Overwatch is like almost drowning and Heroes is under the water, already a skeleton. It's like, oh, look at BlizzCon. Oh, it's so rough for certain games.
Yeah.
So Blizz Daybringer gets in their day of and says, what is dead may never die. Heart emoji. Like, that's nice, Daybringer. Thank you for that. We all agree. Yeah. But then 3 days later, without any prompt, without this really being on top of the Reddit anymore, he logs back in and enters, but rises again harder and stronger, heart emoji. Like he spent the whole weekend debating whether or not he wanted to post the extra bit of the quote. Or for some reason, come Monday, was like, oh, yeah, go for it. Go for it. We discussed it heavily at the PR meeting, and we decided it's okay for you to say that part.
Yeah. I mean, little things like that, though. I mean, they're inspiring in their own way. So it's nice to see stuff that it's just like, it rises, it's gonna come back stronger. And so I don't know.
Is there a hero that is famous for rising?
All of them. No. At some point. All of them. No, I mean, we've gotten past like the old jokes of like, Heroes of the Storm is the Blizzard graveyard. I don't know if you remember that. Like back when like Varian came out, it was like every hero that had died or reached the end of their story ended up joining Heroes of the Storm. And now it's not really like that anymore, since we get a lot of like Overwatch heroes and stuff that are still in the game.
Yeah, and like Hogger has been at the end of his story for a long time.
For a long time. So yeah, we could see literally anyone. I wouldn't expect anyone from Overwatch for probably 6 or 7 months, just because they're going to release one probably to hype up Overwatch 2. So that's at least a year out. But we did see the new Overwatch skins, which is bittersweet. But
sure, it's not. I didn't really take much doom from it because they talked to us so much about the difficulties with Reinhardt. But if you haven't seen this particular image, it was hidden in the Blizzard gallery, and it showcased Stitches, Roadhog, Soldier 76, Raynor, Reinhardt, Johanna, and we knew because of the flail. And then we had Reaper Vala, which is just like, that's Reaper. That's
and we figured like most of those really, like I know a lot of people have talked about like, hey, we need a Roadhog Stitches skin and we need a Reaper Vala skin, since they do a lot of things that are similar. And they don't, Roadhog would be way too similar to Stitches if they were to bring him over. And same thing with Vala or Reaper. And so it made sense. Like we expected those eventually. I think the Reinhardt was the only one that people were a little disappointed with, just because he's very unique and a big piece of heroes, but of Overwatch anyways. But still, those are some really cool looking skins though. Like beyond all that, those are actually some really cool looking skins to have enter the game, like the Reaper Vala one. And these are a lot of what's the word for it? We haven't had a lot of these skins, and most games don't have these skins, that it's a different gendered character as the skin for the character. So for example, the Reinhardt Johanna is going to have all new voice lines, maybe slightly different animations. Same thing with the Reaper Vala. These are so many things are going to have to change to make these work. So these are actually going to be some pretty crazy skins with how they're going to be handled.
I didn't really think about them going that far. I mean, I would be surprised and impressed if they even took lines they already had from the other game, Overwatch. Like Johanna moving along, shield up, flail in the back, give her a pointy hat, and you're done.
but they're not going to have the same voice lines. I would imagine. Like, I mean, they're probably just going to move over the Overwatch ones. But
I mean, we have Widowmaker Nova. She's still talking like Nova.
But that's the same. I feel like I could be wrong here, but it's like at the very least, it's like this very similar characters, and they're very similar. Like, in the, I mean, I guess looking at these, they are. Like the Vala one looks more like Vala than Reaper, so hers is probably still going to be the same. It could still be the same. I don't know.
No,
we'll see what happens.
I would love for them to go that far. I think Reinhardt's enthusiasm is partially why he's so enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Reinhardt's the one I feel the strongest about. Like you mentioned, Paradox. Like Vala still looks very much like Vala. It just looks almost like she joined up with Reaper's crew more than is Reaper, but everyone else looks like their respective Overwatch hero. But yeah, I'm with you on Reinhardt, Kyle. Like I have
so
to have
iconic.
Reinhardt's voice. I have to.
He's so iconic in Overwatch. That's what surprised me. Like, I mean, I'd imagine they could go pretty far with it, and they could have Hammer down when she throws the Blessed Shield, and it could even have like something on the ground kind of reminiscent of it, even though it won't be the same hit marker type thing. But yeah, I mean, there's I don't know. I'm definitely bummed that Reinhardt isn't in the game, but they have mentioned multiple times why they didn't do it. So it's definitely one of those things.
Those abilities.
Yeah, the shield, I'd imagine they do it kind of like Diva's shield, just the opposite. His Fire Strike is basically just Varian's Q.
Yeah, and then Blaze Charge and
yeah. I mean, it would be like a mix of Blaze Charge and Diablos, because if you hit a wall, it does the bonus. I don't know. It's definitely interesting, but I don't know. The skins look really cool.
That'll be okay as long as they take Blessed Hammer, the level 13 talent, and make them full-sized Reinhardt hammers.
I'm fine with that. I see nothing wrong with that. That's what they have to do, right?
The balance of so the ability's better if you have the skin. Is that what we're pitching?
Would it be better or worse? Because it wouldn't have the same hitbox, so it would just be basically adding a lot of clutter. I guess if you have better computer than the people you're playing against, there's a small chance you'll add lag to their game. So, but if you have someone on your team that's still running on like an old Toshiba laptop, then if you take that talent, you've pretty much just gimped your team.
I just want these skins at the end of the day. Like voices or no voices, they look rad.
They do, yeah. They look really cool. I'm curious to see if we're gonna get them like during this balance patch, or if it's gonna be like during an event or something.
I think it's gonna be a mini event, like the mini skin events we saw last year, with like the StarCraft Warcraft crossover.
Yeah, we're only 5 weeks out from the season roll now, and if this is our balance patch coming up next week, that's definitely sitting in the middle to tide us over.
Yeah.
I'm going to infer a lot of things from the next balance patch.
That's true.
Yeah. As always.
Yeah, but for me, I feel like more than usual. I feel like more than usual.
Well, and that's why I feel like my expectation, or it's a hope, not an expectation, that the new balance designer will make any sort of comments in those particular balance notes, because we're probably dealing with a lot of old AZ Jackson thoughts with this next coming one.
Yeah, I'd imagine the next one's going to be a lot of what was probably already set up, and then I would say the one after this one is probably going to be almost all new. So this one's probably going to be half, I would imagine, and the next one's going to be almost all new.
He's been hanging around in streams. He still plays the game. I'd be really curious to see if there's some AZ Jackson like, and on my way out, I'm gonna buff Kharazim to the moon.
I just want to see, like, last time around, they're like, we have this massive 22 hero balance patch, and I want them to be like, oh, by the way, this balance patch is going to hit every hero on the roster. Like, I just want to see a balance patch that does that even once. Just that would be crazy. Maybe in between seasons, so it doesn't affect anyone's ranked games. But like in between seasons, they're like, we're going to touch every hero in the game in some way.
I mean, I would be forced to do multiple episodes on it and break it up. So bring it on. Bring it on. Well, let's see what our listeners have on their minds. Let's take some questions from our old reliable mailbag.
Darkness stopped calling.
Does anyone else hear that buzzing?
Hold on. Darkness just texted me.
You can send your emails to itncast@gmail.com. Anonymous writes in and says, I joined an NGS team as an alt tank flex, and we played together for the first time last night, and hoo boy! In all 3 games we played, the camp timing was super late and the rotations were way off. In all 3 cases, we were behind in levels from 2 and on, and obviously at every talent tier. As a result, our shot caller told us to give everything. Yes, everything. Every objective, every fort, every keep. I almost at one point said, down 20s, give core. But it's best not to push humor with new groups. The question is, you're down levels, 14 to 16, you've lost all of your forts and probably a keep. Everything has gone wrong up until this point, and the next objective will be up in 2 minutes. How do you handle the next 5 minutes of play?
So, I mean, I can definitely take a stab at this. First of all, I just want to say, when you join a new team, there's a flow of things that's going to take a while to get used to. It's not necessarily that the team was bad or good, and it could honestly just be that this flow you need to get the hang of. Some people, they join a team where one member covers a lot of the macro and the other members are great at team fighting. And if they replace their tank / flex, who used to be someone who played a lot of like Joanna and would cover all the double soaking for the team, then you switch to a tank player who's a killer Diablo, can't cover soak for the life of him, but he's a killer Diablo. Suddenly it's going to feel like your team is out of whack and everything's just going to feel awful. So that's the first thing I want to bring up. Second thing is, I often get asked a question a lot of times that's when you're 2 to 3 levels down in a competitive or even a Storm League game, how do you come back? And my first answer is almost always, don't get in that position if you can. The game, Heroes of Storm, is all about momentum. And there's a lot of little details that you can do along the way to grow your momentum. And there's a lot of little details you can forget that will lose momentum. So the biggest way to prevent this from ever happening is to never get in that situation. But if you are stuck in that situation, experience from minions scales slower than the experience scale or gained from kills. So oftentimes you will find that killing enemies in the late game is worth a lot more than it is to get minions. Another thing is structures are easier to take out in the late game than the early game because they don't scale at all. Turrets still give 125 experience when they're destroyed, but forts don't give experience. They just give it over time rather than immediately. So the biggest initial way to catch back up in a game is to look for picks. So as a team, if you all disappear at once, it's kind of obvious that you're going to be looking for picks. But if you have a team comp that has enough damage within a few heroes to get some kills, you could potentially set up ambushes with just those few heroes. Say, for example, you're running a tank that's a great setup, like a Diablo, who can smack someone into a wall if they try to walk through a bush. And then let's say you have a burst mage and maybe a support that's a little bit of a follow-up that's like a Deckard root or a Malfurion root or a Anduin root or I don't know, a Stukov root silence or most supports have a follow-up. And you have that ability with 3 heroes. You can look for a way to catch someone off guard, get a kill, and a kill when you're down 2 to 3 levels can sometimes net a full level off of that single kill. If you're down 14 to 16 and you get a kill, there's a potential that'll get you almost to 15 with a single kill. And if you were already halfway through 14, that could get you mid-level 15 off of that single kill. So the best bet and the best thing that I could recommend is have 1 or 2 people double soak and still try to cover the overwhelming aspect of the experience with that, and then have the rest look for places the enemies might go alone. For example, they might send just a single assassin over to get their camp because they know that you guys aren't going to venture that far out to their camp. So if you send 3 people, you can pick up that kill at their camp, steal their camp, and then get out as fast as possible and you guys can net a huge amount of experience while being behind.
This is what we do a lot in our games, Kyle. Like if we see especially 2 people on the map enemy wise, that's like, oh cool, let's invade their mercs that we know they're taking right now.
Yeah, it's really the best way. Ultimately, the best way is never get in a situation where you're that far behind. The second best thing is do your best to have 1 or 2 people cover the soak, and the rest need to look for opportunities that the enemies are not expecting, which is difficult and competitive, but possible. And the further behind you are, the tighter the rope you're on, the fewer opportunities you're going to have to come back. And that's why, again, number 1 is just don't get in that situation if you can.
This is tough too because of their role they're playing for the NGS team and the tank flex role. To have someone else calling out the shot calls that you shouldn't do anything when your job is already so limited to engagements and anchoring, which aren't bad jobs. They're very important jobs. But feeling that locked out, I wonder if there's a structure you all could build as a team where the assassin says who they want to get. I really want to kill that Deckard. I want to kill that Deckard. Not just like comms and repeating the name Deckard kind of situations, which are very, very helpful, but just figuring out what it is that invade is trying to accomplish, not just plugging the holes on camps.
Yeah, I agree. I do think for me, when I play tank for a team, I feel like tank has to be the shot caller for a huge portion of the game. Tanks generally have easier mechanics. You don't need to be doing as much in team fights. You have longer ability cooldowns. Like if you're playing Mei and you do your combo on someone, you have nothing to do for about 10 to 14 seconds. And I mean, naturally, you're going to be auto attacking, body blocking, doing all of that. But it's like that's pretty limited to what like a nano boosted Malthael is going to have to do, or a nano boosted something. Like they've got so many things they need to do. Healers have so many things they have to do. Where a tank, your cooldowns are super long. Your abilities are generally pretty easy. So I feel like the tank should have a huge part in shot calling. But again, he's new to the team, so I think that might be part of it, where he's just like, I'm just joining, and I don't want to step on anyone's toes right now. I just want to be a member of the team. And that could be a good reason or a good part of that. But yeah, I definitely think just joining is going to feel rough.
I think you could also come up with fun activities for the group to do while losing, like trying to sneak a boss or stealing the keep, or my personal favorite when just horribly behind on any of our walk forward objectives like Garden of Terror, but particularly BOE, is let's let the objective walk past and then see if we can gank them from behind.
Yeah, right behind, man.
It's exciting. When you lose, you're like, well, we tried. Instead of just, and I've been in this situation where, and I've been there with Garrett too, where I'm the shot caller and we're like, well, we can't do that. Well, we can't do that. Well, what can we do?
Yeah.
And it can drive you insane.
It's always a calculated risk in these behind positions. You have to do something that could put you in a worse position, but if you don't make something happen, you're gonna lose anyway. So you might speed up the rate at which you lose, but if you're successful, you just might get yourself back in the game.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the questions usually when I get stuff like this, it's usually worded like, hey, here's a clip for the end of this replay. It's level 20. We have 3 keeps down. We're fighting over a boss. Things are pushing in here. If we do this, we can fight over the boss, but if we lose the game. And if we do this, then they get the boss and we lose the game, but we might be able to like trigger a race or something. And it's like, don't get in that situation. But and that's just the thing with this one, is it's just like you need to find something and there's a risk. I do want to point out that the risk is a lot lower on Volskaya if you're fighting behind the protector, because if they have 2 people still in the protector, you almost get a fight like a 5v3. You can go right behind it. There's 3 people left, and depending on what they left out, they're missing major pieces of their role. Many teams will put in the early game, they'll put a healer and a tank in there. So if the fight goes long, they don't have any sustain. Late game, they usually keep a healer out, and sometimes a tank. Sometimes they put the tank in there, so it's like they might not have a front line. You can just jump right on their back line, kill their back line, and all they have left is a protector. So there's that is the best map to do that on, where like the Infernal Shrines and Battlefield of Eternity are definitely still possibilities to just fight behind.
I'm also going to make an assumption that the flex player is sometimes the bruiser here, and there are options for you that are better at gambling. Like gambling on Ragnaros is the worst thing on the planet. Like that gank we just talked about. Like, come on, everybody, Ragnaros, come on, let's get something done. All right, guys, let me blast wave myself in and hope they're clumped enough that I'm gonna like it. Diva with Defense Matrix, Hogger with a angle you didn't plan but worked out great, Yrel with a knockback. There are other heroes that might be more interesting and fun to you to play from behind as.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. I mean, flex could be anything. The thing that I think is the funniest about this is that like there's only so many NGS teams. If someone's watching this episode, even though it's anonymous, like they totally know who this is. Like they're like, someone just joined our team as a tank flex player, and we had a rough game. But I mean, nothing in here was bad. It was basically just like, hey, what were we supposed to do in this situation? And I think honestly,
I think this individual's etiquette was good. Like it seems like they were like they were chilling and trying not to rock the boat because they realized that they're new and they're in, you know, they're learning the ropes in this new social circle they find themselves in. So yeah, I mean,
everything was great. It's like they're actually looking for a way. They're like, they're not saying, oh, should I leave this team? They're literally saying like, what should we do in this situation and what could be different? And I just really want to emphasize that like new roster changes tend to have this happen. I've worked with a lot of teams that'll drop someone and bring on a new person, and without a doubt, they always have a good 2-week period of they lose almost every game. It's just like one of those things that there's a flow that you get used to the people that you're playing with, and it's like you need time to get that flow to work. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting. It's going to be an interesting challenge for sure.
Yeah. Mangrel wrote in and says, how do you recover when behind in organized games? I mean, this is kind of what we're already talking about.
Pretty much, yeah.
Is this too much of a repeat? It's rare that someone is out of position in a lane for an easy kill. Is there anything you can do other than safely soaking? When should you take a risky boss or camp steal as a last-minute attempt to pull the match back in your favor? So I think we covered a lot.
I mean, the only thing I'm going to add really is, again, late game, how everything scales, kills are going to be your best bet, and looking for opportunities. The enemies might be spread or split, or they're distracted by something. They might be part of an objective, like anything like that. Late game is what you're going to want to do. If you start getting behind early game, you should always be looking for trades. If you can't fight over an objective because they're level 10, you're level 9, then you're going to look for something that you can get. It'll never be equal value, but you can look for something that will get you still some value. So if you're on Cursed Hollow and they hit 10 before the last one where they're about to get a curse, go immediately to your boss. Start getting your boss, so when they get the curse, you've got a boss pushing in another lane. You can defend against the boss, and you still get front walls down in at least one lane. And so early game, when you get behind, look for trades. Late game, when you get behind, you're going to have to take risks, and you're going to want to practice that. And ultimately in all scenarios, you want to do your best to not get behind, but that's the best that I can share on that one.
I'll add in, you're going to need really, really quick comms, and that's going to take a lot of practice to make a core call, to make a keep call, to do that boss steal. Like the chance that everyone's getting a little winded at that point is pretty high, that when you call that you're all going to do this crazy things, someone might miss it or be in a different mind state. And that takes a lot of trust, and also no name confusion, which is something we're running to in my NGS team and Heroes Lounge team, because we have Cav, Kyle, Kai, and Coffee, and it can get a little complicated.
That's actually really funny. I mean, speaking of comms, I do want to also bring up, when you're behind is probably the word, like the hardest time to manage everyone's mentality and also comms. I find a lot of teams get very quiet when they get behind, and that's kind of the worst time to get quiet, because that's when you need the most amount of things to be happening. You need to cover the most amount of soak. You need to be grouped up at the right amount of times, or the right times anyways. And so keeping your head in the game, I always tell teams, just be willing to say no worries and move on. And also don't mention mistakes unless they're absolutely going to be necessary for winning the next fight. Because the second that you're like, we should have done blank, is just going to get people to think one step behind, and it's going to tilt people. You always want to be thinking 5 steps forward, and every step that you're thinking about something that just happened, you're not thinking about what could be potentially happening. And so keeping your comms calm is going to be a great way to keep everyone just in the game, rather than getting like tilted or talking about something else or just getting too quiet. So always keep the comms going, keep it lighthearted. You can still be making jokes. Like, you never want people to feel like defeated before you're actually defeated.
I think that's all really solid advice that I should probably try and follow a little bit more.
It's difficult. It's definitely difficult. I find myself in there too.
Yeah. I'm guilty of it too, but I'm also I also get very tilted by the pointing out mistakes after the fact. It's like, no shit, thanks.
Yeah, like, I know what I did. I was there.
Yeah. All right, Valkymer writes in and says, melee assassins have been in a strange place that I will call narrowly overpowered. How do you see their current usage, future balance, and any desired changes? It's a good point.
It is. Yeah, I think melee assassins are really hard to balance because they need something strong to compensate for the fact that they are in the front line, able to get hit by literally everything. And at the same time, they don't have the survivability as a bruiser. So they have to be extraordinarily strong. And oftentimes they do way more, like someone like Kira, for example, does actually way more damage than most assassins, most ranged assassins, and most heroes in the game. The problem is that she can die really, really fast. So she's very hard to balance because in the right hands, in the right situation, she does way too much damage. But outside of that, those two things, she just gets blown up way too fast. So I think that's just a really difficult challenge for them. Like, they either need to be very niche, like Zeratul, where they fit in a few different scenarios, or Kerrigan, where they fit in a few different scenarios, or they just are in a really difficult spot to balance, like Illidan, for example, where if they buff his damage even slightly, that buffs his healing, and that buffs like his cooldown reduction. If they buff his attack speed, it buffs everything about him. And it's like it just one small, like if they literally bumped up his attack speed by 20%, he would be busted in like every way. Where if you took someone like ETC, buffed his attack speed by 20%, it really wouldn't change too much. I mean, I guess like his E build, it would change a lot, but for the most part, most tanks, you buff their attack speed too much, it doesn't really affect it. Or their healers, 20% attack speed doesn't affect it too much. But like Illidan's win rate would probably bump by like 25% if you just increase his attack speed by like 20 to 25%. And it's like no other hero would do that. So that's the biggest challenge about it, is that things like that happen with these heroes because they're just so hard to balance. I would argue giving them more utility would be an easier way to compensate for them rather than giving them more damage. That would be easier to balance, but that also kind of just puts them into a less competitive environment. So I don't know. Yes, it's difficult.
I think there's this horrible, paradox situation that develops when you're a melee assassin and you haven't hit anything forever. So your brain goes, oh my God, I really just want to hit some things. I'm going to go do a camp. I'm going to go do some lane clear. And a lot of our melee assassins aren't necessarily as good at those things as they once were, or a bruiser would do that job better and safer. So like 4-man Alarak, pretty good.
Yeah.
But the patience that it requires for that Alarak to even stay committed to that rotational job is really intense compared to the bruiser, who's always farting off, doing all these crazy things, going, having fun, then coming back and doing a bombastic team fight, and then going off to do other things than watching the tank all game.
Oh yeah, dude, my mentality, because I've been picking up Kerrigan a little bit more ever since we had that one random game like 3 weeks ago where it was like, oh damn, that was great. I forgot I could play Kerrigan. Yeah. Woo. All right.
Yeah.
But my mentality is just, it's that I'm having issue with that. I'm like late to everything because I'm like, yeah, I'll just stay behind and clean up this lane. Don't worry about me, guys. Oh wait, I'm Kerrigan and this is not my job. I should be with you. And I just noticed myself multiple times in multiple games just going, why can't I just keep this in my mind and just stay with the rotation? But it's because I'm usually on the bruiser.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the melee assassins have always been such a weird spot because like they're generally just used for like very niche comps in competitive, and outside of competitive, they're heroes that a lot of people really like and enjoy playing, but they're so squishy, and if you buff them and you have to nerf their damage, and then they'll just be a bruiser, and it's like it's definitely a tricky spot. And I don't know, I feel bad for Blizzard trying to have to balance melee assassins because they're fun. The only thing I would say is I would like to see the meta shift a little bit to see us moving away from all these tanks. Because then we can start seeing more melee assassins in the solo lane. But the only way to get rid of all of these tanks is either to nerf all the tanks or to nerf all the damage. You can nerf all the tanks and then everyone's just going to blow up all the time, but you don't really need double tank anymore. Or you can nerf all the damage and then then tanks wouldn't be needed as much. But yeah, I mean, the current meta makes it also a lot harder to use melee assassins.
Yeah. And I think I haven't even heard someone mention the term burst comp in a long time, but we used to throw that around, and my brain still goes to Kerrigan, and like, man, those are still my favorite compositions. Like, if you told me I could opt in to like a month of nothing but like playing Kerrigan and these just dive comps, like, thank you. I want to play that.
Yeah, the other thing too is, I would actually be interested in maybe making them more map specific, because like Kerrigan's so fun on Infernal Shrines, and Illidan's pretty fun on like Cursed Hollow and the plant map, Garden of Terror. I think it would be okay to even make melee assassins more rewarding on just specific maps and just give them a little bit more utility on those particular things.
Like make meat drop off of the Immortal for the Butcher or something. Like,
why not? You know, like, I mean, it might be interesting to see like how they can make these. You're encouraged to play them in more ways, just to kind of, it's kind of a band-aid to create a larger roster. And I'm okay with band-aids sometimes for problems that exist, as long as it's a decent band-aid. Rather than trying to overall change the entire meta, you can just go, oh, by the way, Butcher gains some benefits on these maps. Like Butcher starts getting meat from camps. And so you can almost have Butcher be running around getting camps on the plant map instead of in lane. And so it's just a little bit more benefited from that. And
that's an extreme situation too, because then you remove the threat of the Butcher, which would be the whole joy of even running him in the early game, because you know exactly where he is, because now he's in a lane getting meat. But if he could do a camp, there's still that like, oh, is he top? Am I gonna get ganked? This is kind of scary.
He could be more like the League style junglers, where he's farming in the jungle and then he could gank from any lane at any point. You'll kind of know his path, because it'll go, oh, that camp was picked up red, this camp's picked up red, this camp's picked up red, oh, he's going to gank top. And so you kind of get a direction of where he's going. But you could also gank him on there too, because you would think that would make him safer, but actually he could be lower and used all of his abilities on a camp. You know the direction he's going. You can gank him at the camp, steal the camp, and reduce his meat at the same time. So there's still counterplay to it, but it would make him stronger on specific maps. So I don't know. I mean, they could do that with melee assassins and just find ways to encourage them to be played on specific maps to kind of band-aid their low popularity in the competitive environment. I don't know.
I think I'm ending this like at the opposite of the conversation we had at the top of the show, where we were talking about low played heroes, like us wanting them to get some love. I think my exception to that is melee assassins.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I like the risk reward of it, and I like that they are almost entirely, the entire class of them, this niche genre of hero in this game. Like every single one of them has low play and volatile win rates, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
when they are the right tool for the job, it is exciting, and it snaps you out of the same draft you've seen game after game. So
yeah,
it's not as exciting an answer, but like for the most part, I like where they're at. But I mean, I'm picking up what you're laying down on finding more ways to make them a little more map specific, because I wouldn't mind seeing them a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, they tried something like this with the tanks in the past, where they were trying to find ways to get people to play more than 3 tanks, and so they gave them their spell armor or physical armor, and they tried to get people to play more tanks, and it did. I mean, I found myself playing Tyrael a lot more when he had spell armor, because then he wasn't just automatically outclassed by Joanna. Or like, I know those don't really outclass each other, but you understand where I'm getting at with that. And so it was a unique thing. They removed that, and I actually prefer that they removed that, because I would rather pick a tank for like the comp that I want to do, rather than just picking a tank to counter the damage type that the enemy has. And it was, but I like the idea of what they were thinking about when they did something like that. And it's like, I would love them to kind of rethink about something like that, to potentially boost up the roster without buffing heroes.
I think that's fair. Thank you, Valk, for your question. And everyone else, send them into itncast@gmail.com. If you're a patron, drop a question in the Discord. Skip the inbox entirely. Before we go, I want to have a little bit fun and reach outside of the heroes pool. Okay. And I would like to ask both of you what your favorite thing at BlizzConline was.
Oh, well, guess first.
Ooh. All right. I mean, I think we talked about it a little bit. I don't remember if it was on stream or not, but Overwatch 2, I'm overly hyped for. It's just one of those games. I've been hyped for Overwatch 2 since I saw like the first tiny hint about it, like a year and a half ago, where they were like, hey, we're going to be doing a co-op, kind of a looter shooter style thing, where you're going to have talent trees with the Overwatch heroes that are going to change how your hero plays and how the abilities function. They're like, and they literally said, they were like, if you can think of like the Heroes of the Storm talents, but way more complex and all co-op, I was like, I'm in. Where do I learn more? And then they revealed like 2. And I think I told everyone about these 2, and I was that like nerdy friend that like is talking your ear off about like a collectible card game you've never played and the decks that they've built. And I literally was just like, okay, so Lucio has this one build where if he's moving faster, his Q, or his knockback, his Q, will have an increased radius, right? And then the second part of this talent is that the more people you hit with your Q, it'll add 1 shot onto the burst of your auto attack. And so your auto attack will then fire more. So if you hit 15 enemies, your burst that's normally 4 is going to be 19 that's going to fire off and burst. And then there's a talent that makes it to where there's 2 different talents you can choose from. One of them says, for each person hit by your basic attack, it will do a heal to the lowest health target on your team. And another one says that it will lower the cooldown of your E. So you can choose either method to heal. So you're going to be moving around at a super fast pace, hitting a bunch of things, firing off a burst of like 20 shots, lowering the cooldown of your E, giving yourself more movement speed, and doing the whole thing over again until you need to heal your team. And I'm sitting there talking people's ear off about this, and all I knew, they only released essentially 3 heroes and 2 talent, or two sets of talents for each of those 3 heroes. And I talked people's ears off forever. And now they just revealed way more at BlizzCon Online, BlizzConline. And I was hyped out of my mind. So that is Overwatch 2 has been what I've been like insanely hyped about. Yes, I'm also very excited about Burning Crusades, but I know I'm going to go and play that, get like to level 65 and then like burn out. Because that's what happened with Vanilla, unfortunately, or Classic. So, yeah, I'm definitely hyped for Overwatch 2.
Kyle, what about you, man?
Diablo 4 multiplayer, or at least PvP.
Is it because AZ Jackson went over to the Diablo 4 team?
Sure, he's a lead game designer over there, or at least a game designer, senior game designer. That might have an influence at this point on the PvP. For me, it's more that these are skills I have. I can't shoot. I'm not particularly great at card games, though I love them. But you know what I can do in real time is aim some skill shots and maneuver around. And I really, really enjoyed the bounty system from BFA. I thought it was really fun. For the time we enjoyed it, because of course it burned out. It was a system, and that's how World of Warcraft systems go. You enjoy them. They're not so incredibly deep, maybe because they just move on to the next system. And that's a conversation for another time. I love the idea of the open world having these hunters in them. And should you kill enough people, you become the target. You are now revealed. You are flagged for PvP. And then you go into a dungeon and it's no big deal. You're in your own little story. You're doing your own thing. But the world being dangerous is just so exciting to me. And I'd really love to see that grow into something battle righty, even this new Eternal Return sort of thing. Like, there are talents in Diablo 3 that if you took them all away and you made them I got them out of chests, I'd have a really good time with that. So the fact that they're actually building it into the base game for Diablo 4 means there's a chance that that'll grow into something that I can actually invest in, enjoy. Think about, what's my iframes? Like, when I actually care to know what an iframe is and how I'm going to get it, now I'm invested.
Yeah, sick. I like it. What about you, Garrett? What was it for you? BlizzCon line 2021. What was it? What did it?
I don't mean this to sound like a shot fired, but they finally made Anduin interesting. And that was really cool for me.
He's no longer himself.
I've always found him to be such a wet blanket. But no, I talked a little bit. So I did WoW Killer the first thing this morning, and I talked a little bit about this on there. But like, I'm excited for what comes next for Anduin, because I have a feeling he's not going to die. And I think he's going to snap out of whatever's going on with him. And I think this is going to horrify him. And it's going to I think it's really going to affect his character. And I think Anduin's going to finally have something besides sunshines and rainbows to his backstory.
Wait, so you're excited about him going from stoically sad to guilty sad?
Yes.
That's sad.
That is sad.
The dude has had his only his Varian died, like his dad died, like that is adversity. But like beyond that, like in the realm of World of Warcraft trials and tribulations, Anduin has had it damn easy.
Yeah, true.
So like to be subjugated by a force of pure evil is, it's like, finally something interesting is happening to Anduin.
I could see that. He kind of was on his high horse, and I think Sylvanas even says that at some point.
He was weird, bummed while being on top of the world. And I'm like, listen, I get it. Varian was cool. He was your dad. He's not around anymore. That's fine. But like everyone else around you is cursed, dead, and resurrected. Everyone else has been through so much worse. And I just don't feel for you.
That little cutscene would have been like a billion times better if just in the background on some cloud there was a gray man yelling, "No!"
Right. Greymane's been through enough too, though. Like that's the funny thing. It's like you said, it's like he's basically been through almost nothing, and for the most part, he's grown up in a building within Stormwind. Like that's. I mean, like he's been out, but like honestly,
Anduin's
that's what it is.
Yeah, a little bit of a trust fund kid.
Yeah, basically.
But yeah, that and I freaking want to play a Diablo 4 rogue really bad. That was some real fluid flow from range to melee combat.
That's cool.
And I'm really digging it. Because like at first I'm like, another hooded character, demon hunter much, and then I saw the stabby rolling into arrow usage, and I'm like, never mind. This looks different enough, and it looks very much like gameplay I want to be a part of.
Yeah. And I saw they had in the trailer the dash did like a couple different things, which naturally in Diablo, all of your abilities have like 4 or 5 different like things that they can do. And the dash looked like it had a lot of different play styles to it just off of one ability. So I did think that was really cool.
I saw that they did it might have been for the trailer, the slowdown, but I'm so nuts for that stuff. Like the God of War leap in the air and the camera goes wing and like,
oh yeah,
just a little pause, just a little 300 pause for me goes so far. Hades has it when you do the final enemy in the room. I just go nuts for that stuff, and I doubt it's in there because there's PvP. But ooh.
I mean, maybe it's in there if you don't have PvP enabled, Kyle. One can hope. Maybe one can hope.
Or just like the end of a dungeon or something. It might do it a little bit.
We're millennials, man. We grew up with anime. Of course, you're not alone in this, Kyle. We all go nuts for speed ramping down. We're here for it. Yeah. It was all right overall. Like I was impressed with BlizzCon line. I thought the entire thing was just going to be poor lighting on webcams. And so like when they actually had like a sound stage and like they really went for it in terms of the production. I was impressed because they seem to have a lot of the Blizzard announcements seem to have been really low rent ever since the pandemic started. So I mean they've done some pretty impressive stuff. Like I read something that said that the raid the vampire raid in World of Warcraft, Castle Nathria, I believe. Yeah, Nathria. Yeah.
Yeah, they said that it was like 80% of that dungeon was done at home.
That's nuts.
Of that raid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like they've still done some pretty impressive stuff at home. And yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's definitely going to be something. There was only one real like bug I noticed throughout that BlizzCon line that kind of got people. There was a point where they had like the Tavern Keeper music on for like the waiting for the next event to come on, and when the event came on they never turned off the Tavern Keeper music. So like there was a good like 15 minutes where the chat was literally just like turn up the jams, like because you couldn't hear what people were saying because there was just tavern music over it.
Yeah, it happens.
But other than that, I mean, it was a fun event. It was really, really fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. And then Kyle, like we got to do live commentary with Scott Johnson and Jocelyn, and I don't think all 4 of us have ever collaborated on a thing at the same time, or if we have, it's been a long time. And it was definitely our first time doing live commentary, and dude, that was a treat.
Oh yeah, it was some good riff tracks fun.
Yeah. And then and then we ended up in a unplanned Heroes of the Storm after party, like AZ Jackson tweeted about it. Otherwise I was not going to mention it, but yeah, we played with him and we played with Brew. We ended up in a Discord with a bunch of HOTS alums, and it was dude, that just warmed my heart. That was exactly that felt more like BlizzCon to me than anything else, because it was just this unplanned, like you're not on, you're not performing, you're not doing a show, like it was just so fun.
You're just hanging out.
Yeah. Well, it gave that human element that BlizzCon line naturally was missing, like to have a developer show up in that chat and say something along like, "Oh, they revealed my boss today. I'm nervous." Like I saw the reaction in Twitch chat. I don't know if they liked my boss. That was just so sweet.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to forget that one person often, like so many things in life, has to go get groceries, has to sit down and design a whole boss. Yes, committees get involved. Yes, there's feedback loops and artists have to do this and that. But at the end of the day, someone had to make a call. And it can be really, really scary when you're DMing for 10 million people.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. Right after the jailer was announced, I remember a lot of people were making fun of the jailer because he was wearing sweatpants. And I just want to know, like, who the designer is, who has to read all these comments from people going, they're not sweat. Yeah, you know what? Never mind. Like, because it's like he's literally like no shoes, wearing sweatpants, just chilling after work. Like and that's just like the thing that's funny is like I could only imagine now that you say that, like the designer reading these comments and just like, what is wrong with you guys? Like,
there's like this brand new art asset over here. It's beautiful. They worked for hours, and now you're competing with somebody who put a dragon in a pirate costume, and it's everybody's favorite thing on the planet.
Yeah. That's great. That's dude. I mean, you just described meme culture, though, right? Like, what is meme culture? But like, all of the pain, sweat, and tears that went into like Avengers Endgame, and all we're doing is making Fat Thor gifs. Like,
Yeah.
like, come on. All we're doing is putting sunglasses, is photoshopping sunglasses onto Thanos. Like, that's just you can't control this stuff, so you just got to ride the wave, Kyle. You just got to ride the wave.
But I will say they like 3 times, if not more, at the end of the official opening ceremony before the Carbot animation rolled. He just kept saying over, J. Allen Brack, more to come, more worlds, new games, can't wait to share more, and then just did it over again 3 times, which is something.
Yeah, I'm wondering that when I heard him say it the first time, it seemed like there was a new IP on the way, like kind of like how Overwatch came out and it was none of the characters that they've ever used. And that's what it seemed like to me. It was like, oh, by the way, we're working on something that has more worlds. And it's like that. It's surprising to me because Overwatch wasn't even really a new world. It was part of another project first. It was part of Project Titan. And we had already known some of the characters like Doomfist, and we had already known some of the characters like Reinhardt and Tracer that have kind of snuck through from Project Titan in leaks and announcements and stuff. So we knew that new universes exist. It just seemed like the way that he worded it was like something that we had never seen before and beyond the game. So I wonder if they are working on a new IP, and they tend to hit every new genre, which makes me wonder, there's not really a genre that they haven't hit that's big enough, right? Like they have everything but like a fighting game, and that's not really a big enough genre. So I'd be curious what that means.
Well, they'd be right on time for a battle royale and Blizzard Clock.
On Blizzard Clock, yeah.
I think they learned their lessons from HOTS, but who knows, right? Like it's not like ability-based shooters were really hot when Overwatch came out. So
that's true. I mean, we were all sitting around being like, is this Team Fortress?
Yeah. I mean, at that point, Team Fortress had long kind of like moved. Its hype had long passed. Because HOTS hit right when like League and Dota 2 were at like peak popularity. Overwatch 2 came out, Overwatch came out, and it was just like, oh yeah, TF2. That's a thing I haven't thought about in a long time. So who knows? Could be something like that, right? But it's Activision Blizzard, and Activision already has a really successful battle royale.
Yeah, they do. So I mean, they could look at strategy again, but I feel like at strategy, people they should just use the names they already have, like just go StarCraft 3, but like, or Warcraft 4, which they wouldn't do because of the ever expanding world of Warcraft. It's like StarCraft 4 would work, or 3 would work. But I don't know. I mean, again, like the other genres that are just like sitting there. The other one is like, if they are on Blizzard Clock, like those survival games like Rust and Ark and all of that, and Valheim and everything.
Valheim's real hot right now.
Yeah, like those, there's always a new flavor of the month of one of those games. And if we're going by Blizzard Clock, 3 years from now sounds about right for a survival game.
Yeah.
In a new world.
Yeah. I'm just curious, like how much Valheim's already going to eat that resurgent interest, because it seems to be hitting at the right place at the right time. I just saw a headline saying they surpassed 4 million copies sold.
Yeah.
That's bonkers for a game made by 5 people. Oh my God. Which by the way, if you support the show, Kyle and I put up our VOD of us, our first time playing Valheim, up on the Patreon. We had a really good time, and I would expect, Kyle, we might be streaming it again next week.
Oh yeah. No, it captures that desire for questing. It's kind of a little bit of classic. It's kind of a little bit of Minecraft, but it also reminded me how much items, and people have talked about this before, but items mattered in old World of Warcraft. Without those systems, without badges and replacements, like if you got a trinket at level 40 in Classic, that was a pretty damn good trinket. If you crafted, let's say, an alchemy stone in BC, you were set. Like that would last you forever. And that's something that game has really lost over time, is this feeling of, okay, I didn't get what I wanted. I didn't kill what I wanted today. It didn't drop, but I'm working towards this project. And my project will not be ruined by subsequent projects in the future.
Well, not until the expansion, but yeah.
Exactly.
I'm good for 2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
That's a cadence you have to get used to.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you're right. Or just like, it seems basic by comparison to modern WoW, but like the idea of like resistance gear. Like, I can't even go fight an axe unless I get my frost resist, because Sephiroth will just ice my ass to death. Like, it's basic, but it works. And even though it seems simple compared to the systems that we have now, like in the game at the time as it functioned, it was a big hurdle you had to clear, and it felt like an accomplishment you had to get to.
But there was a Twitch comment that I saw like offhandedly zoom by at light speed, but time paused for a moment when I saw someone just type, "I don't want systems, I want content." And it really made me think how the modern MMO sphere is chasing some sort of mythical unicorn. If they can just make something that generates itself, we would all be happy forever. But that's not true.
Yeah, MMOs are such a tricky thing. I love MMOs, but it's always a tricky beast of keeping people's attention without making those people feel uncatchable. Because there's a lot of MMOs where it's like, I don't usually have a lot of time to play MMOs. So I want one that it's like, hey, I can get into and I can feel like I'm really assisting in something, and I can really help in a dungeon that's a difficult dungeon, or explore a world where people are still exploring that world. Even though I don't have as much time to play with as everyone else. But at the same time, if you make it too easy for everyone to catch up, it's like nothing to do. So you just lose people. So a lot of MMOs are trying to find like their gimmick to make them different from everyone else while still managing that curve. And it's definitely like a really, it's tricky. And the other thing too is I don't know if this is something that you guys have had recently, but like I've been trying to go back and playing a lot of games that I haven't played in a while, and like there's so many new mechanics and systems and stuff that I start trying to learn everything, and I'm like, I'm bored, and I leave. Like I tried to replay Warframe, and I'm like there's too many things that are different now. I don't really want to take the time to learn this to catch up to where I was at before, or where I feel like I should be at. So I just stopped playing. I went to go play like Elder Scrolls Online, same thing. I was like, oh, there's just so many things I feel like I have to learn. And there's just people running around and insta-killing everything. I'm like, I don't even know. So I just stopped playing. And it's like, I think where Valheim came in is it's like, it's relatively simple to get going. And I think that's another thing that they're trying to get into is like, we really need a process where you can immediately jump into the content, feel like something major is happening, and then move into something else. And I don't know. I mean, it's definitely like, it's just a weird beast. I love MMOs, but it's such a weird beast. And I don't even think this one's really considered like an MMO. It's more, Valheim's more like one of these like survival open world games, right?
Yeah. And I mean, if any, like you could even maybe sprinkle a little Diablo in there, because you can do it with a small group of friends, but you can also do that in survival games. So
yeah,
it's interesting for sure. So, anyways, a plug for Kyle's stream. Keep your eye on twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson, because when we get up to it, that's where we'll be getting up to it. And I would imagine you might still see my view of things creeping up over on our Patreon, just for some bonus content for you. If you like Kyle and me, we would assume you'd like hanging out with us for 2 to 3 hours while we fail to build a crappy home. So
we succeeded in covering the beds.
You're right. We succeeded in building a crappy home. We failed at creating a nice home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Success.
It's easy to succeed as long as you move the goalpost. That's it. That's all you got to do.
That's it.
It's just like, I want this to look nice. Never mind. I just want to be able to click on my bed. And that's all that matters. Anyways, yeah, so check that out. And I think this is where we'll wrap this episode up. Thank you again to our patrons for supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN. If you like what we're doing here, the Patreon is the best way to support us. And we also pay our guests for their time. So thank you for allowing us to do that, everybody. Check it out, patreon.com/ITN. Also, a big thanks to our Patreon producers, Declan H, Cheesy Bob, Chris K, and Sean B. If you want to be a producer, we have a slot open now. Head on over to patreon.com/ITN. We're live Thursdays around 3 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/AMoveTV. You can follow the show on Twitter at ITNcast to find out exactly when we're going live or if there's any schedule changes. Other than that, around the table, starting with our guest, NotParadox. Dude, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, thank you. So most people know me for my educational Heroes of the Storm content. I have guides from people that are literally just starting MOBAs to guides where I use and I break down, I use content from competitive scene and I break down their games, their builds, their play styles, so you can learn and play just like, or at least learn and attempt to play just like the pros and competitive players of the game. So from all levels of play, I've made guides, I've coached teams from all levels of play and coached players from all levels of play. And I do my best to release at least one video a week. I push for 2 videos a week on YouTube. I don't stream a lot, but you can also follow my Twitch and my Twitter. I don't post a lot on really any of that, but you can Google NotParadox and follow all of that stuff and keep up to date on all of my content that is going out. And then once again, thank you guys so much for bringing me along.
Of course, man. Thanks for coming back on. I'm sure we'll talk to you soon. Kyle, dude, what about you? Where can people find your content when you're not doing Into the Nexus?
You can find everything I do over at kylefergusson.com. Lots of things to check out right now. There is the NGS tournament firing up, and you can catch those usually Tuesdays or Wednesday nights over at twitch.tv/KyleFergusson. There's also the end of the season coming up for There Will Be Dungeons. I am DMing Dungeon Mastering, a 5th edition podcast, a 12-episode arc, like you might know for something you might watch on TV, condensed. Check it out.
That's more episodes than there were in a season of Ozark, which I finally started watching. Or it might be the same, actually.
There you go. But still, we're going for that kind of Mandalorian 12, if you will. Not like the 22 of Avatar: Last Airbender, though we all love lots of content.
We're getting new Avatar. Did you see the news?
Yeah, the movie, yeah.
Did you see the news, Kyle? They founded Avatar Studios.
It's the original guys, right? The writers?
Yeah. Nickelodeon is partnering back up with the original creators of Avatar. And boy, it sure sounds like Lucasfilm for the world of Avatar to me. It sure feels like that.
But they made Katara the older sibling, which kind of ruins quite a bit of like, what's even Sokka gonna do now?
Wait, what?
Yeah. Katara's the older sibling now.
Wait, that's a thing?
Yeah, that's they're doing.
I think they are retconning a couple things, but it is going to be like I know they announced like one movie and more stuff. So I don't know exactly.
Yeah, I don't think you can go out of your way of like establishing this thing for like Avatar Studios and not like blow open that universe much wider.
Yeah.
So it's a good. I feel very much the same way about the universe that I do Star Wars. I'm like, you could tell so many stories. I don't even need to go hang out with the avatars. Like give me like a story in the Water Kingdom. Like, and let's just focus on that. And it's so ripe for storytelling. But yeah, if you can tell what I was excited about. Sorry, Kyle. You got made me think of a thing.
You made me reveal my heavy skepticism at the moment.
There you go. There you go.
YouTube.com/Kyle Fergusson for everything else and those VOD uploads from the Twitch. So check it all out.
Sick. I'm Garrett Art on Twitter. You can follow me on there. amove.tv for this podcast and every single other one that I produce. New Angry Chicken went up this week covering all of the announcements at BlizzConline. Yes, we are as confused about Mercenaries as you are. I have no idea what it's about. But lots of stuff there. Apparently they just announced a whole new core set for the game today. And so go check that out over at amove.tv. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Until next time, good luck and have fun.
Take care.